So, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us for the last Saturday session of 2025. This is our 90th anniversary year. Jason Ricci almost doesn't need introduction. He's one of the most influential, recorded, celebrated harmonica players working in the world today. Jason was born in Portland, Maine, and his mother took him to many live blues shows starting in his early teens to witness performances by James Cotton, Charlie Musselwhite, Eddie Clearwater, Ron Piazza, Buckwheat Zydeco, and many, many others. He's appeared as a guest harmonica player on albums with Johnny Winter, Anna Popovic, Joe Louis Walker, Cedric Burnside, Walter Trout, Mike Zito, Nick Moss, and the list goes on. He's also been on multiple tours and performances with Mark Hummel's Blues Harmonica Blowout project, performing with Curtis Salgado, Charlie Musselwhite, Duke Robillard, Anson Funderburg, Sugar Ray Norcia, Lazy Lester, Aki Kumar, Howard Levy, Corky Siegel, Son of Dave, Jerry Portnoy, Rick Estrin, and on and on and on. Today, Jason lives in New Orleans and tours with various projects, recording and teaching music. He's married to Boston singer, guitarist, and songwriter Caitlin Dibble, who also tours and records with Jason Ricci and the Bad Kind. If you have any questions today, please just ask him in the chat. Jason's keeping an eye on that, and he'll answer them along on the way. Don't worry about keeping them till the end. And with that, I'd like to hand over to Jason so he can do his talk on basic arpeggios, scales, approach tones, and enclosures. So thank you, Jason.
What's happening, y'all? This is good. It's not a morning for you guys. It's late in the afternoon, but or early evening, but it's morning here in New Orleans. And so today, I like our host said, you got to ask the questions in the chat box. Otherwise, I'm just going to keep talking. All right, until the end, and there won't be any questions. So feel free to interrupt me and just be like, I don't understand. And then I'm going to still try to stop early so you can personally come on here and ask questions. This hour is going to fly by for me anyway. Now, I don't know if you guys have the ability to record this lesson or retain the recording of this. Is that the case, Mr. Gene?
It sure is. Yeah, we're recording this now. Yep.
And they have access to the recording afterwards?
So members will have access to the recording on the member site. Yep.
That's important. Not everything, for the sake of time, I will not be able to get into details about everything that I discuss. So it'll be imperative, if you don't understand something that I'm talking about, to go back and kind of watch it. And then you'll be able to make use of the lesson in some cases, for some of y'all, for years to come. When I first started out and was learning harmonica, there was no YouTube, of course, probably like most of you. And I would go and take a lesson from guys, and a lot of the guys, most all of the guys, they didn't really want to hear me play at all. I didn't have a chance to play that day. I just recorded it on a cassette. They talked for an hour, and I took that cassette and I studied that cassette for years. Oh. And there were sections of the cassette that I didn't understand at all for 2 or 3 years. And then later was like, oh, okay, I get it. That's what they were talking about. So for $50 was the price of the lesson. I studied the cassette and got thousands of lessons, really, or hundreds, at least hundreds of lessons out of that one single time. And that happened because I didn't talk. and I listened, right? And I didn't understand it. But that being said, feel free to interact today. But I want to get through this subject because it's something I don't hear a lot of harmonica players talking about. The other thing is I'm a big proponent of improvisation. So I believe that jazz and blues music is as rooted in that approach as it is in anything else that we think about it. as a matter of fact, I think it's probably the most important part of it. And I think that today, I hear a lot of them probably, I mean, like y'all, if you go on YouTube or Instagram or Facebook, you're going to hear some amazing performances from some young musicians, and you're going to sit there and think, oh well, I should quit, or I'm done, right? Or I can't believe that he's playing, Donna Lee on a diatonic, or John Coltrane or whatever, or Jimi Hendrix, whatever the heck it is. But what I've noticed, and this isn't true all the time, but it's true a lot of the time. What I've noticed is that many of those players have simply learned that piece of music note for note and are just replicating it. Okay, now I'm not saying that's not important, and that there's not skill involved in doing that, and that also that you don't learn from doing that. You do. You learn from all of those things. However, that's not what those artists that made that music were doing. So I'm not talking about the head to a jazz song or whatever, but I'm talking about the improvisational sections in the middle of a song. They weren't doing that. If you listen to Little Walter's Juke and then you listen to Take Two, which is available, that song the Take Two doesn't even do this. It doesn't even do that on Take Two. So it wasn't something that he learned and played again, Little Walter. It was a song in E. It was an improvisational section of time in the key of E. Everything that he was playing was off the top of his head. So that's what I'm trying to teach today in a practical way, involving some kind of mechanism of communication, being words that will depict chord structure. Okay, so what are the notes in a chord, right? What are scale tones? These are so even if the artists that we listen to didn't know that terminology, they had internalized that concept one way or another. If you were to feed Little Walter's entire catalog of improvised music, which it all is, into a computer, and then ask the computer, like AI, and then ask AI, what is the probability that Little Walter didn't understand chord structure and harmony? The computer would say, there is a 99.9999% chance that Little Walter only was operating off of a knowledge of chord structure and harmony. That there's a 0.1 or a 1% chance that he didn't understand it. That is because it is the same thing as the fact that I can speak English to you without understanding what a verb is, without understanding what a noun is, without understanding what punctuation is, and you can still understand me. But learning the names of verbs, of nouns, of pronouns, of all of these things, learning sentence structure, paragraph, language in general, only helps me to communicate to you how to do that. So while I was a person that learned music the same way that most of the old blues guys did, meaning face to face, off of old records, right? That's the way I learned. Playing, trying, rewinding, right? Playing in third position before I knew it was called third position, right? The same thing, just grabbing a harmonica out of the case and listening to Junior Wells and trying to do that. That's how I started. And I never went to have any real formal musical training. I audited a jazz workshop or a jazz improv college course that I didn't understand for a year. I could barely overblow, so I could barely make it through the class, because if you can't play chromatically, you really can't play jazz. So, but I learned at the feet of bass players and piano players and guitar players on stage, because there was money involved. And if I couldn't, right, Tom, and if I couldn't complete the task, the work, the assignment, I wasn't going to get hired back or paid at all. So I had to put aside my views that, oh, well, Little Walter and Big Walter and Junior Wells, they didn't know no theory. I had to put that aside and go, okay, how's it go? And they go, well, okay, look, it just starts on the major third. And I said, well, I don't know what that is. And they say, okay, you play it all the time. Let me show you what it is. And I'd get frustrated and angry and resistant. But then I thought about, I really like this piece of music, or I hate this piece of music, but I want the $800 that comes at the end of the gig. Okay. So I'm going to put my opinions, artistic opinions aside about what is important, and I'm going to learn this. What happened as a result of that was an entire world of musical understanding has slowly opened itself to me over the years. And every year, even at 51, as my health and brain are on the precipice of decline, okay, the very beginning, I'm noticing, right, the same thing you guys are noticing. My eyesight's going. I forget things. I'm in the other room. I'm like, why am I here? Right. The same. My neck hurts for like a month and a half or 2 months. Right. Same stuff. Even during that, I'm learning more now at 51 than I ever was at 21. And I'm playing, 10, 15, 20 minutes a day on average. Some days for hours, some days none at all. And I'm still learning more than ever, doing half the amount of playing, because this knowledge is now opening itself up to me because I'm putting in the work. Okay, so record the lesson, review the lesson, and then you'll get it. One of the things that I noticed right away that I couldn't do, that other musicians seemed to be able to do, was I would be listening to like a piece of music on the radio with my wife. Like we have a wonderful jazz and blues station here in New Orleans called WWOZ. You guys can tune in anytime you want. I just put it in the chat section. Just search WWOZ Radio New Orleans. You can tune in 24 hours a day and listen to music that's happening right now in New Orleans. And one of the things that would happen often is we'd be driving around and I would be listening to some jazz song. And, it sounded like, crazy jazz. Right. And I would say to my wife, hey, do you recognize that song? And they're in the middle of an improv section. And she'd be like, no, what are you talking about? And I'd be like, listen. And she couldn't get it. And then towards the end of the song, they would go to the melody, to the actual melody. And it would be a recognizable song. Like it might have been Smells Like, one time, it was Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana, but yet played at a jazz thing. Now, so I was like, how do they do that? How do they play off of the melody? Now, I knew it was more than just like learning Somewhere Over the Rainbow and then messing around with a couple of notes in between. That is more than just doing, right, just changing it a little. These cats were really going in and out of that stuff. And I thought, how do they do that? How do they do that? And I didn't realize that I was already doing that with 3 chords. And that was all the blues stuff I had ever done in my life. So I started studying this thing called arpeggios. So what is an arpeggio? So there's at least 3 notes in every chord. We call those notes the root, the third, and the fifth. It's not important that you understand why we call them that. It's important that you understand what they are. Let's take a look. So we'll be in second position in G for this exercise on a C harmonica. It doesn't have a label. All right. So the first chord is what's called, I'm putting this all in the chat. The first chord is what's called a major triad. And so we have 2 draw, 3 draw, and 4 draw. So we're familiar with this sound, right? Because or that old Fats Domino. Right? And then let's take a look at another chord. So that's the 1 chord. And now let's do the 4 chord. We're in second position one more time. We'll do 1 blow, 2 blow, and 2 draw. So those are the same 3 notes respectively on a different chord. That chord being a C chord in this case, or the 4. Where do I get this 1, 4, 5 thing? Key of G. G is 1. Code for 1. G, A, B, C. 1, 2, 3, 4. G, A, B, C. That's where that comes from. So now I'm playing the same 3 notes that I played here, except I'm playing the same 3 notes respectively for C, the root of C, the third of C, and the fifth of C. C, D, E, third, C, D, E, F, G, fifth. Come on in, Biko. Yep. Oh, sorry. Thank you. Coffee. All right. On the 5 chord. One draw is the root of 5. How do I get 5? G, A, B, C, D, D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's called the Nashville numbering system. It enabled musicians to communicate with each other that couldn't read music. 3 draw, double bend. So there we go. 1 draw, 2 draw, 3 draw, 2 draw, half step bend, 3 draw, double bend. So we hear Little Walter using these notes all the time, maybe adding a couple of extras, but now again, I'm just improvising. So I went off of a Little Walter idea, I think from the song, it ain't right. But then from there, I stopped thinking about Little Walter. And what was I thinking about were these notes over here in the chat. So I can play them backwards or forwards, or in any order. Right. So I'm just making that up. Like I just making it up. I just went and then picked the middle one. And I never actually played that exact thing like that. It started to remind me a little bit of Paul DeLay when I started doing it. And then I started having more fun kind of thinking about Paul. But that was the afterthought, right? It was the afterthought. The first thing is that I have these 3 notes and I can rearrange them any way I want to. So the funny thing is that most music, blues, jazz, country, rock and roll, pop, most of it, or a lot of it anyway, revolves around these 3 chords. They're so important that they have names besides just the 1, 4, and 5. The tonic, the subdominant, and the dominant. They have their own special names when they go together. So if you learn these 3, it's a good start, and then you learn the rest of them. When you listen to guys like Howard Levy and Konstantin Reinfeld and Philippe Gers, harmonica players like that, those are people that have learned the rest of them. They have learned chords besides blues chords. If you watch my videos, sometimes I'll make jokes and I'll be like, so we're going to do this for all 3 chords. Like that's all there is in the world, right? Because I operate from such a blues-based upbringing, right? It's just how I started. You guys, Gene gave me the intro. I was 13 years old when my mother brought me to see Cotton, and I was already playing, already going for it. So anyway, let me give you an example of me working with a song that is not a blues song that uses those 3 chords. Okay. So the name of the song is Indian Red. It's a sacred Mardi Gras Indian song. If you don't know who the Mardi Gras Indians are, I suggest you go to YouTube and read about them because they're a very important cultural group of people that have created some beautiful music and history and art in New Orleans. And their story is incredible. And that's what a lot of us, what we really celebrate here on Mardi Gras, not beads and boobs. Okay. Anyway, but particularly Black culture. So there are other chords. Before I get into Indian Red, let me just tell you that there are other chords besides major triads. Those are just the beginning. That's the beginning of all chords, are those 3 notes, root, third, and fifth. That's what makes up the chord. That's what it is. When we play them together, it's a chord. When we play them individually, the notes of each chord, it's what we call an arpeggio, like a barbershop quartet. Ba, 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 like that. We can add notes to each of those chords. Root, third, fifth, I can add the 6th note. So again, let's say we're in the key of C this time. C is 1, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. I just count up 8, right, until I get back to C, or 7 notes, with C, only 1 octave of C, 7 notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. C, the top octave being the 8th note. So if I wanted to add a 6, C, D, E, F, G, A, right there. That's how I do that. If I wanted to add a 7 or whatever, a major 7, I just find that and add it. So here's my major triad. Now I'm going to add the 6. So you might not think that's important, but if you listen to Big Walter Horton or Little Walter, you've probably, or any piano player or blues bass player or guitar player or saxophone player, you've probably heard. That's what it is. It's a 6-chord arpeggio. We call it a walking bass line when it's played like that. But I can also play it or 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 See, I'm using the same notes. I'm just playing them in different orders.
Hey, Jason.
Yes.
Jason, your audio's cutting out a little bit. I don't know if it's your Bluetooth or if
I
you've
don't have Bluetooth.
Is it original sound
you
problem?
got the original sound. Is it your original sound on still?
Oh, no,
Just
it's on now.
Okay.
It's on now. Okay.
Okay.
So when I play them, I'm so glad somebody told me. So when I play them individually, right, I can put them in any order. Like I can go up or I can go down. I can play the second one to the first one, the third one to the second one, or go down 3 or up 3, or I can skip the one in between. When we start doing this, we realize so much of the music that we've listened to, that we started studying, is not very original. It was scale exercises that the artist was doing, or not arpeggios, or scale exercises that the artist was doing at home. And then they were like, oh, that sounds pretty. Why don't I make it into a song? And that's what happens. Things like the Jitterbug Waltz. Boo-da, boo-doo, boo-da, 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 boo-da-da. Fats Waller, right? The Carlos covered it. Really, really pretty version of it, by the way. But anyway, that's it. It all comes from that. So that's a 6 chord. All right. So now I could add a 7 instead. Right? Pretty woman. Right? We hear it all the time. Little Walter. That's all 7th chord arpeggio stuff. Now, he might not have known that or called it that, and he might have. We don't know, really. We got an interview with him where he's a lot smarter or a lot more articulate concerning music theory than any of us, or certainly the people that I interact with on Facebook, thought. All right. This is a guy that we say all the time, oh, well, Little Walter, listen to Lester Young. And then he played with Louis Jordan's rhythm section, the Myers Brothers, and Fred Belo, and then you hear people all the time on Facebook saying, well, there's no possibility that he understood anything about music theory. Yet he studied Lester Young and played with Louis Jordan's jazz band. And you're telling me that they never had conversations about music on some level? It's absurd. I think it's what they refer to nowadays as the beautiful savage. The idea of romanticizing the idea that that black people or indigenous people had no intelligence or ability to, or if that intelligence displayed itself in a different way, that somehow it was all just soul. Or an athleticism, a specimen. He's a fine specimen whereas the white quarterback is the game manager, the strategy guy, right? So it's just we see this kind of blatant racism exerting itself all the time in music. Yeah, we don't apply that to the jazz guys for no reason. We just reserve that for the blues guys. Not that the jazz guys don't get their fair share of it. Anyway, I'm digressing terribly. All right. Now that the audio is working. So I'm going to take this song and getting back to the thing where I told you about where there's a melody and then I begin to improvise over that melody, and then you can still hear the song in the melody. So if you were to know the song Indian Red and then accidentally tune in halfway through my performance in the middle, even without hearing the melody, you would say, oh, well, that song is Indian Red, or at the very least, it's a song that has the exact same chord changes as Indian Red. Okay. So first I'm going to use just major triads. Then I will use 6 chords. And then I will use 7. Let's do this. First, I will break the song down in root notes, one single note. Then I will apply major triads. Then I will apply 6 chords, then 7th chords. Then I will improvise using all of the above. And then maybe at the end, I'll try to do the whole thing with just the major pentatonic scale, just 5 notes, using the knowledge that I know from the notes that are in the chords, from the arpeggios, and just using one of each note or just a couple of each note in each chord change. So the song is very simple. It starts on the root. It goes. Okay, so one more time, it's just root, 5, 1, 1 again, 4, back to 1, 5, and then, so it's just like a blues, except it's not in the same order as a 12-bar blues. So now I'm going to play the melody again, and then I'm going to start improvising, completely improvising, not anything memorized, using major triads and just those 3 notes only on each chord. Not one extra note, not one passing note, not one approach tone or any of those things that we'll get into later. None of that. Then I'll do the same exact thing with 6 chords, then the same exact thing with 7th chords. Then I'll integrate them. Then I'll start putting in the approach tones and little licks and then scale exercises and all of that on top of it. And then I will end and open us up for questions. All right, here we go. Indian Red, the Sacred Mardi Gras Indian song, which I play with permission, by the way. And you should have permission to play this song. I have permission from Honey Bannister from the Wild Wild West and Juan Boudreau from the Golden Eagle tribe here in New Orleans. Here it goes. Here we go. Majors. Major triads. Six chords. Sevens. Everything. More. Major pentatonic. Uh, Head. Right? So that's all it is. That's all it is. So I had no idea at all what was going to happen once I started. I'm just trying to follow each of those chord changes. Now, that took a lot of work to be able to play like that. Yes, it seems like a convincing argument for learning your scales and your arpeggios. And what helps your scale work? Your arpeggios. What helps your arpeggio work? Your scale work. What helps you understand licks faster? Arpeggios, scales. What helps your scales get more or less predictable? A few licks here and there in the middle of them. But all music could be banned today. They could say, listen to this. They could say Jason Ricci only. The courts have decided you are now no longer able to listen to any music ever for the rest of your life. I would cry. I would be heartbroken. No more Charlie Parker. No more Bill Evans. No more Wynton Kelly. No more Dizzy Gillespie. I would be heartbroken. But guess what? I bet you I'd be a better musician without even listening, because all of the music is right there. It's all right in there. All of these scales, arpeggios, chord structure, study, all of this stuff teaches itself to you. It's like 1,000 little Walter records in one, just learning your major triads on 3 chords. Are you improvising over Lawrence asked, are you improvising over the actual chords in the song? Yes. Can you then improvise over any song by using the structures you mentioned, i.e. major 6, 7s, etc.? Where do we start for faster learning? Okay, great question. Yes, you can do this with any song in the world, like Happy Birthday. So that ends on a major 7, right? So now I have to figure out where a major 7 is. A major 7 arpeggio. That ends on a 1. Ends on a 6, on a 2 blow or a 6. One again. How's it? Wait, where's that triad? I did it one. It's in Softly as in a Morning Sunrise. Hold on one second. So. So that's how those guys do that. You ever wonder what all that decorative stuff is in between melodies and stuff? They're just playing the notes that are in the melody or in the. My wife, right before she met me, she used to. We'd be working with other musicians writing songs, and afterwards, we'd be getting ready to go record the song, and we'd be doing what nowadays is called the metadata, which is a fancy way of saying who wrote the song and how long is it and what's the name and all that stuff. And we'd be doing that, and she'd go, "Oh, well, but the guitar player, Brent, he wrote all the music." No, he didn't. You wrote the music when you wrote the melody. He just knows more about music than you, so was able to name the chords that are behind the notes that you're singing. That doesn't mean he wrote the song. He had nothing to do with it. He's just able to do that. But people that don't understand music lose millions of dollars because they can't stick up for themselves and say, no. Those, all that is an A chord behind an A note. Don't tell me that you wrote that. I'm the one that sang it. I'm the one that played it on my harmonica. All right. So it's important. It's important stuff. Sorry. Jason doesn't even improvisation rely on many licks that you've learned in the past. Well, sort of yes and no. Okay, so the better I'm playing, the less I'm doing that. Because the key to playing good music is listening and interacting with what the drummer and the bass player or whoever is in the band is doing. The key to playing good music is not thinking about a lick or something that I want to do or say. It's responding in the moment. It's being there. When I look at the best performances I have, it's dangerous for me. If I see a performance that's incredible, it's incredible because I was in the moment. So then what do I want to do? I'm a human. I want to control. I want to own. So what do? I start going back and learning my own licks. I'm learning. At the time, I was completely improvising and playing in the moment. Now I'm learning Jason's licks the same way I would Little Walter or Carlos de Junco. And then I go out on stage and I try to recreate it. And no matter how good I play it, it doesn't come out the same. Because there is a spiritual axiom that comes with playing blues and jazz music improvisationally that doesn't rely on decided ideas about what I'm going to do here. It's as if I was having a conversation with you and I was some kind of a pull string toy or an AI response. You might not notice it at first, but after a half hour or an hour of communication, you will notice that AI begins to repeat itself. It starts to use certain words the same way in a manner that is uncharacteristically inhuman. It's getting better though. Anyway, so if I have a lick, right? That's a lick, but I could also, so I got a tempo. 1, a 2, a 1, 2, 3. Just one chord, no changes. Right, so that's the lick, right? But what I could do is, right, so you see what I'm doing? It's just one lick, but it's not a lick. It's a group of notes that I'm changing. So what is a scale? A group of notes that I'm changing. What is an arpeggio? A group of notes that I'm changing. What is the melody to a song? A group of notes that I can change. That's it. That's it. So yes, you think of licks, right? But right? Just changing them. All right, let's see. Next question. Can you give me a demo of how you might practice arpeggios? Okay, so we'll start with major triads. So there's 3 notes. So I'll just play. I might just go up forwards. And then do another one. Right? And then I might try the same thing backwards. Right? And then I might try moving them around a little bit. Like, you know, taking not playing them backwards or forwards, but changing the way that I played it to maybe something like, right. See, now and I never done that before. That. And it's cool. It's like worthy of recording, right? Or it's like, you know, I just wrote that. Was it probably written before me? Yeah, probably somebody. There's only 3 notes. Somebody figured out how to do it probably pretty close to that. But I didn't hear it. I was banned from music. They cut off my music. I wasn't able to hear it. I just used basic mathematics. I think okay. Great session, Jason. I have to go. Many thanks. Okay, Michael Heath, sorry I missed you. I suppose that you can learn from analyzing others' improvisations. Jeff Frost said, I suppose, though, you can learn from analyzing other improvisations. Yes, you can learn from that. But also, there's no substitute for getting involved in yourself. All right, more questions. Those glasses are slick. Are they X-ray band meta smart glasses? Nope. They're light up glasses from Amazon. But this side doesn't work anymore. So you can read and change tubes in the dark. All right. Azza, what's happening, my brother? Good to see you. Your breath control seems amazingly percussive. Yes. Yeah. Okay. So that comes from like chugging. Right? And I didn't think that chugging was really something I ever wanted to do. But after I learned it, I started. So I listening to Junior Wells did a lot of the same stuff. Right, it was just like that percussive waiting to hit, attacking certain beats, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So if I played the juke lick, and just attacked beat 2 instead of going, which hits both beats 1, 3, and 4. I just hit beat 4, or the downbeat 2 and 4. Right? Right? And the cool thing about doing that is I'm hitting at the same time the snare drum does. So I'm using the band to elevate what I'm doing. Also, the band hears that I'm listening to what they're playing and they get stoked on it, and now we're part of something together. And the drummer's going to hit it harder the next time after he hears me do it. And then all of a sudden, what are we doing? We're listening to each other. We're creating music in the spot. We're not thinking about licks, we're thinking about beats. We're not thinking about licks, we're thinking about notes. We're not thinking about notes, we're thinking about the collection of notes together. We're not thinking about the collection of notes together, we're thinking about sadness. We're thinking about pain. We're thinking about our lives. I'm not worried about impressing anybody. I'm not worried about getting this lick in. I'm not worried about playing the arpeggio correctly because I practiced it. And if I didn't practice it, that's okay. I go home and practice it. I get on stage. I do the best I can. People play amazing music that don't know anything about any of this stuff, right? But this stuff can't hurt you. It can only help you. It can only help you. And if you're a musician that's like me, or Philippe Gers, or Howard Levy, or Konstantin Reinfeld, or so many of these other young guys, then you love all music, right? Not just blues, not just music that we've heard harmonica in. And I do. I love all of music, and I still take lessons, sometimes from Philippe, mostly, who I love. He's my favorite right now, But there's all kinds of guys I was just checking out. I was just all involved in this this YouTube channel, Federico Lida or something like that, from down in South America. Anyway, I've ranted long enough. You guys ask some stuff. Feel free to chime in on the vocals too. Like, you don't have to type it. I feel lonely.
Wow, fantastic. Really, really good lesson. Very good. So impressed.
Thank you. Was that an hour? Is that too much? I can go more.
No, keep going, Jason. If you, we got plenty of time.
More questions. I mean, look, I understand that everything that I'm saying is confusing. I understand that, right? And it's like, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. And like, even that Indian Red song, it's only 3 chords. The 3 chords that I was familiar with my entire life. You take them out of order, and it takes every bit of Jason's brain to concentrate on what chord is coming next. Now, the good news is that stops me from thinking about my ideas. There's a saying, you make plans and God laughs. All right. So that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It takes me out of that. And then it makes me search for the prettiest notes. Here's something I've noticed over the years. Sometimes, and I don't know, maybe some of you have noticed this too, but sometimes when I was young and I was learning a new position, like 12th position or 3rd position or 1st, I noticed that in some of the recordings, the early recordings of me playing in that position, that I actually played much prettier in it than after I knew it. Now, the reason for that is because I was just looking for the next right note. I was barely hanging on, and I was being very conservative. Once I got to know the position better, and I could play all kinds of fancy stuff, and I had licks and stuff in it, I would start it to sound like this toy right here. Oh wait, is it broken now? Oh man. It needs new batteries. Anyway, you push a button and it plays a lick. But I started to sound like that. just a collection of licks, right? And that was all I had. And then as I got better, I started striving to get back to that more melodic place that I was in the beginning. And then I was even better. I had so everything's a process. So people are like, oh, you play too many notes, or it's too busy, or it sounds like scales. So what? That's just a growing pain that you go through. Everybody has to go through that. You have to test the limits. You have to step over the line before you know where the line is. But if you're one of these guys or people that shuts themselves off to information because you're afraid that you're not going to sound like you, or that you're going to be too intellectual, or that you're not going to have any heart or soul, you're going to soon wake up one day and you're going to hear somebody and you're going to realize that I didn't even know what soul was. Right. And then this person knows. You're going to feel like Luke Skywalker when Yoda, who he thought was this like loser, midget, dirtbag guy living on Dagobah, some slummy swampland, some uneducated heathen that put food all over his face and snored. And then you watch Yoda lift the X-Wing fighter out of the swamp into the air through magic or the force, right? That's how you're going to feel when suddenly you realize that Seresta by Howard Levy in its samba Brazilian jazz thing has as much soul or more than Blues with a Feeling by Little Walter. That John Coltrane and Charlie Parker were playing pain and joy and anger and laughter. And just because your ears weren't attuned to that particular culture, whether it be jazz, Latin, rock and roll, punk rock, I don't give a ferret. Whatever it is, you will grow and evolve, and then you will just realize that there are so many different manifestations of soul, of feeling, of that. I remember this woman, Dara Longobardi. She was a used car salesman, and she used to have these parties up at her house, and she had party favors, right? And she would lure the musicians back to her fancy house, and they would come back and they would give me harmonica lessons. They would go into a room that I wasn't allowed to go into because I was only like 17 or 18. And then they would come out of the room very excited. And, and then they would teach me about music until 6 or 7 in the morning. And one of these guys was telling me, oh man, it was Madison Slim, right? He said, Jason, he goes, don't listen to John Popper, and don't listen to Howard Levy, and don't listen to Sugar Blue. And Dara, the used car salesman who we thought knew nothing, she goes, why? And Madison Slim said, well, they don't have any soul. And then Dara said back to him, the non-musician, okay, the used car salesman, she said, how do you know what's in his soul? As I got older, as I started hanging out in Miami, Delray Beach, areas in Florida, made visits to New Orleans, as I acquainted myself with Latin music, with jazz music, with Afro-Cuban music, with, island music, Trinidad, reggae music, calypso, steel drum, all of that stuff, I started to hear music differently. I started to find that Duke Ellington and Billie Holiday and Mongo Santa Maria and Fela and Howard Levy and Bela Fleck and John Coltrane and all of these people, to me, were speaking to me on a level that would make me cry if it was taken away. I'd be okay, but it would make me cry, because to me, that's the most beautiful music in the world. To me. But that it started with blues. It started with Albert King and B.B. King and Little Walter and Sonny Boy and stuff like that. But I just love music. That's all there is to it. I don't see a need to even categorize it. Oh yeah. So Cathal said from a quote today on Facebook that the gig sometimes feels like it's killing me as much as it's keeping me alive. That's true. What helps rekindle your love for playing when burnout creeps in? Okay, a couple of things. First of all, rest. Okay, it's important. It's important to take time off. Second, not too much time off, but like a day here or a day two. Second, learning new songs, new things, arpeggios, scales, whatever. The last 2 days, I've been fighting off the last couple of weeks, 3 weeks or so, I've been fighting off some pretty heavy depression. So I've been doing that in a lot of different ways. I have personal depression. I'm physically in pain. My neck is injured. I had a problem. I had to go to the dentist and have all this stuff done. And then musically, I felt a little threatened by some stuff I saw online, and my ego got a little bruised. And I thought I'm no good and I'm passe and what am I good for? And I'm not making any money at this. I can't pay my bills on time. You know, I have to cut down. I have to stop doing things that I like to do, like eating things that I like to eat. I have to change what I shop at the grocery store. So I got depressed. So the first thing I did, and I do this, I learned to do this because people told me what to do. It's not because it feels natural. It's not because it comes natural to me. In other words, I have to force myself to do it. The first thing I did when I started to get emotionally and spiritually depressed was I started helping other people. So I started calling up friends and going, how are you doing? Right? Not even talking about how I'm doing. How are you doing? Right? How's that chemotherapy going? While I'm complaining about the Blues Cruise. How's that going? Right? That kind of stuff. Seeing what I can do to help other people get sober. Musically depressed, bruised ego, whatever. What do? Well, I learn some songs. I practice. Makes me feel a little bit better. There was a song I've always wanted to learn my whole life, right? And I knew it was going to be really, really hard. And I wasn't let down either. I had no idea it was going to be that hard, which is Harlem Nocturne. And I learned that yesterday. I sat there and I learned the whole thing. I had to figure it out in 3 different positions in order to, so I had to learn it 3 different ways in 3 different positions to find out which position would sound the best, because they were all really hard and really hard to make sound good. Coincidentally, I ended up in 5th position. So it was a songs in G minor. I was on a B flat harmonica, root note being 3 double bend. Today I sat down when I got here a little earlier than I thought I was supposed to be, because I don't follow directions well, and I had a couple hours, so I learned "Night in Tunisia," a song I've wanted to learn since I was a little kid. It took me like 5 minutes to learn it because I was terrified that I wasn't good enough to do it because Dizzy Gillespie wrote it. Right? So I thought I couldn't possibly do it. And I learned it. I learned it in 5 minutes, right? It was easy. It's easy for me. It was easy, right? Harlem Nocturne, not so much. That was really, really hard. So that's what I do. Look, I got this little sign here. It says 5 minutes. I have to have a sign. That means practice 5 minutes. If I do that, I don't usually get depressed musically. Or what's the question? Or I don't get burned out, right? I get excited. Additionally, playing music for 5 minutes, right? It turns into 20 or 30 or an hour or 2 hours every time. But I write 5 minutes because 5 minutes is manageable amount of time. I know that I have 5 minutes somewhere in my day. So I do that. I need to do this with jumping jacks and push-ups too, right? I have to have a different side of the day. A different room that says 5 minutes for jumping jacks and push-ups, right? But anyway, so once I start doing this, right? Once I start getting involved in music, I stop with the ego. I stop caring about where I'm at, how technical I am, how traditional I am. Is my tone any good? Is my tone terrible? Am I better than I was yesterday? Am I worse than I was a year ago? Right? Am I jazzy enough? Do I like blues anymore? Do I want to, should I just play blues? Right? These are when we pick up this instrument, that's what we're picking up. Anxiety. Am I any good? Am I not any good? Does it sound good to you? Does it sound good to me? Am I repeating yesterday's licks? Am I using those arpeggios that I paid so much money to be in the class to learn? How come I'm not watching that video? I should be watching that video. I'm no good. Stop it. 5 minutes. 5 minutes, just do a major triad, do a scale. You'll feel better afterwards. It all comes. How do we eat an elephant? One bite at a time. That's it. Ever start to do that, you start to feel better. You stop worrying about the money. You stop worrying about who's doing what. It's none of my business. It's never been any of my business. You start hearing other people, and instead of getting jealous or thinking that you suck, you get excited, and you realize that everybody brings something different to the table. You know, some days my favorite harmonica player is Taj Mahal. Right? He doesn't overblow. He doesn't play any arpeggios. Right? But some days that's my guy. Some days it's Junior Wells. Ask me tomorrow who the greatest harmonica player in the world is. I go, I don't know. I have no idea, because it's not just about technique. It's not Howard. It's not Philippe. I think today it's Philippe, right? It's Philippe a lot of days, but that's it. But every day is different. Everybody brings something different, right? It's about sincerity. It's about being in the moment. That's what it's about. Cats that replicate music the same way are never my favorite harmonica player. I'll just tell you that. Like, if I find out that you are playing the song and the solo the same way every night, you will never be my favorite harmonica player. Sorry. I might respect you. I might go, that was probably hard to learn. It took a lot of memorizing, but I don't care. It's not the spirit of the music. I'm way too bipolar right now. Is it helpful to look at the chord notes and see which of those correspond to different scales? Yes. The blues scale, the major pentatonic, for example, and use them as focus notes for different feelings. Absolutely stunningly amazing question. Harmonica UK. So at the very end of the I'm playing Night in Tunisia in third. How's it go? Anyway, I just learned it today. That's what it goes like. But
you're
yeah.
cutting out again, Jason. You're cutting out again. I don't know. You're still on.
Oh, it went off. Hold on.
Yeah, that's weird.
It went off. It went off. I don't know why it did. It's in third. I just learned it an hour ago. Anyway, yeah, it is helpful to look at the chord notes, and see how those correspond to different scales. That was the hardest thing that I did, Gene, Harmonica UK. That was the hardest thing I did in Indian Red. And the reason it was the hardest is because some chords only had 2 notes or 1 note that worked for them, or 2 notes, right, that worked for them. So I only had one choice, so I had to get to it quicker. The more you know arpeggios, the more you realize what stuff is there. You can also come up to each note of an arpeggio. We call those approach tones, right? So right, so I can do anything. I can come up chromatically to any note. Check out my video on enclosures on YouTube. It went up last week. Okay. Gotta go, David. Take care. Any more questions?
Can you explain what an enclosure is? What do you mean by enclosure?
Sure, I just spilled coffee on my white shirt. Yeah. So you have 3 notes of the major triad, right? We'll take those 3. So I look at those 3 notes as the main deal, the target notes. Right? So I can come up chromatically. You can call them passing notes. So in other words, I can play any note in the world on the way up to that note. And because those notes carry more depth and weight than the other ones that I'm playing at that particular time, because the band's playing the chord, or I am at least implying the chord, you will still hear the same thing. Right? So I can also go down to the note. Right? Right, something like that. Right, so I could take any song in the world and just start putting in these kind of little things just to decorate it. So let's sing. So I could go just a little decoration. So I'm just putting in the notes. A blues song using enclosures. I'm just going to play the bass line first. Right? So and all of that's just off the top of my head. So that you put in some different changes, some still blues, but blues jazz, right? Same arpeggios, just 6 chords and 7th chords. Quick 4. Again. Back to the 1. Quick 5. 4. Raise 4. 1. 6. 2. 5. Now with enclosures. 4. Oops. Again. Ah. anyway, I need a lot of practice. But that's the same stuff. So it's just this. It's like endless stuff. Like I could sit here for hours and hours and hours, and come up with a million different exercises just off of what I did wrong, right? And continue to have just, I mean, hours and hours and hours of fun without ever having to go to YouTube and look for an instructional video.
Okay, Jason, if you want to take some of the last questions, if there's any other questions, we can wrap it up here, or are there any other questions?
They're afraid to ask. That afraid I'll go on for another 2 hours.
Jason, you play with your eyes shut. Is that, do you know you're doing it, or have you ever realized?
What's the question?
Play with your eyes shut? Maybe it's concentration?
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe like sometimes it's probably good to not play with my eyes closed, because if I'm looking at you guys, then I'm not overthinking the music. And if I'm closing my eyes, sometimes I'm doing it to concentrate on what chords, because I'm afraid to look at you guys, because if I look at you, I might think he hates it or he loves it, and then I might think he hates it, I suck, or I might think he loves it, yeah, I'm awesome. And as soon as one of those thoughts comes into my head, I miss the chord change, or I forget to put feeling into the music, or something happens, right? So it's a double-edged sword. I don't know whether the right thing to do is to look or not look. What did Charlie Parker do? I don't know. I think he like looked up like a Buddha.
Ray Charles.
Laissez le bon temps rouler. Yeah, you're right. Anyway, that was a lot, guys. Go to YouTube, type in Jason Ricci arpeggios. You'll get bite-sized chunks. Type in get your own sound with my name, right? And you'll get a video on how to use just one note at a time of the notes in a triad. Go to YouTube and type in Jason Ricci scales, and don't just do mine, do other people's too. Check out like Philippe and Will Wild and stuff like that. And then type in Jason Ricci approach tones, right, or enclosures, and you'll come up with different stuff. And then so today what I did in here is give an overall broad presentation to try to get you excited, hopefully not intimidate you too much. That was like the whole monologue at the beginning about recording it and going back and listening over and over and over again. I don't know that I would have understood most of what I was saying even 10 years ago. And this excites me. The fact that I can say that I'm a different player than I was 10 years ago is very exciting, because a lot of my heroes kind of never really got any better. They got more refined and seasoned, but they didn't change. But when we listen to somebody like Miles Davis, you hear this radical change, almost yearly, right, out of him or something. That's exciting, Yeah, it's hard to keep up every week on YouTube and Patreon and Instagram and everything. It's really, really hard. It's a full-time job. And then, I've cut down on the individual lessons so that I can do things. Hey, Cathal, how you doing, brother? I cut down on the individual lessons so I could learn shit like Harlem Nocturne and Night in Tunisia. So I have time to do that. Yeah, I saw that Howard's got a book coming out. I'm kind of interested in that book. Howard's a musician who is probably, many days my favorite harmonica player, but I have a difficult time understanding him when he teaches. or relating much to him when he talks. But I will be interested to read that book to see if that changes. Do I have any plans for a book? No, not really. I think that books are kind of going the way, unfortunately, of music, in that I don't think anybody's really, not very many people are reading anymore. I think I'd be better off making a video where I just talk to you and tell you the story of my life. But I've also had some bad experiences. I did an hour and a half with a writer. So I met with him on Skype for an hour and a half, sometimes 2, sometimes 4 hours, every week for a year and a half. He promised me when we started this that that he would have a publishing deal and that the book would be written, because I told him I didn't want to tell all the private details of my life. Even though it was going to be published, I didn't want to do it in person or to a stranger on Skype, that it would be like therapy without the therapy. if it wasn't going to come to something like a book. And he promised me, told me his wife was a celebrated published author. She is. Anyway, the book never came out. And this total stranger from the UK, by the way, knows every single thing in the world about me. And it sucks. And I was going to put it in a book for everybody to read, but then I would have made money off of it. Right? Or at least I might have potential for that to happen. But anyway, I think I'd probably write it better myself, but I don't know. I'm just exhausted by the whole process. I don't know where I'd get the time. I really don't. My doctor's on me about exercise, about, my AA, my 12-step sponsors on me about meditation and this and that. I go to therapy. I do this. I try to allot time every week to helping other people. I try to spend time with my wife. I like to sit on the porch every now and then to smoke a cigar. Somehow I'm supposed to be able to do all of that, personal and spiritual and mental upkeep, while also making YouTube videos, teaching lessons, and traveling all over the world, gigging and posting every day on 5 different platforms on social media. I don't get it.
Yeah.
I don't see how.
Well, thank you, Jason. I think you deserve a rest.
My bro.
And so,
I don't know how to do it.
okay.
All right.
Well, I think, yeah, we can end it here. And I will make an endeavor to get this up on the members area pretty quickly. Sorry, I've got an echo now.
That's probably my
Thank you. Great. Really great.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Jason.
Thanks, Jason. You're amazing.
Thank you. You guys are amazing. Thanks for being patient with me being crazy.
Loved it.
Excellent. Thank you so much.